Horrifying news coming out of the UK. A quarter of a million young British girls were brutalized, systematically tortured, kidnapped, sold into sex slavery. Atrocities that one can only imagine or you think that it's fake because of how unbelievably evil, gruesome, and gratuitous it is. Yet there is mainstream media silence, there's leftist activist silence, feminists are nowhere to be found. We're going to talk about that. We'll also talk about President Lee Jae-myung coming back from the G7 summit and his interactions with President Trump. What they talked about and what does that mean for the future of the Korean Peninsula and also American relations. And then lastly, we'll go over to the MLB, which is something we don't really talk about much. Not a huge baseball fan, but we will talk about Christian patriots, their defiance to the LGBTQ rainbow mafia, and how them standing on truth and conviction is a great win for America. All that and more today on the Kangmin Lee Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Kangmin Lee Show. I am your host, Kangmin Lee. Lee Kangmin is my name. We're all about restoring faith, identity, and civilization here on this show from east to west. Now, as you can see here, he's here. Yeah, he's here. The Buc-ee's mascot. Let's go. Dubs in the chat. Dubs everywhere, all around. I don't know what to name him. Let me know what I should name him. But I saw him. I was out of town last weekend. Went to a Buc-ee's, one of the greatest places in America. It is peak Americana, peak American aesthetics, hospitality, food, culture, experience. It is peak America. You see all of these videos of foreigners coming to America and they're stopping by Buc-ee's and experiencing it for the first time. And it's so wholesome. It's so great. But you see that America does indeed have a culture. People say that America doesn't have a culture, and yes, because of multiculturalism, because of mass immigration and diversity, America is losing its culture, but America still has a core at its foundation, and it's very American in nature. Everyone around the world knows it. That's why all the foreigners, they love the rodeos and the Texas shootouts and the cowboy aesthetics, the pioneers, the frontier. That's peak Americana. That is American aesthetics, and then you combine that with modernity, with the B-2 bombers and the Thunderbird fighter jets flying through the sky, soaring with the red, white, and blue. That's peak Americana. So America's 250th birthday is coming up very, very soon. So I thought it'd be appropriate to get this limited edition Buc-ee's thing. This is not a promo. It's not an ad, by the way. I just thought it was really cute and wholesome and be a nice addition to the show while we celebrate America's 250th anniversary. And also, I was yesterday at the Knicks parade. That was kind of crazy. And if you saw on my socials, I posted some pictures about it. I almost died. I literally thought I was going to die. If you guys remember the Itaewon incident on Halloween, was it 4 years ago-ish? Yeah, I thought that was going to happen. And I'm not exaggerating because in a lot of subway stations, like on the parade route, they blocked the exits. So people literally couldn't get out of the subway onto the streets. So what happens as a result is you have one side here, one exit here, one exit here. People are trying to get out, but they can't get out. So they come back in while people are trying to exit the subway train they just got out of. And so you get this smushing conglomeration scenario where people can potentially get stampeded on and toppled and suffocated. And that's what happened in Itaewon. People come from one side, another side, people getting squished. They had nowhere to go. And then people died. And it's horrifying. And I thought that was going to happen. It was such a mismanagement. The fact that Knicks bringing home the first NBA title in 53 years and Mom Donnie couldn't do the bare minimum to ensure that, because they estimated millions of people would show up. And then so they couldn't spread it out and create more space and even out the parade route. No, they had to slam it into few blocks. I almost died. But it was good. We had good content. That video is coming out very shortly. And we are working on more long-form, highly edited videos on the show. So you have that to look forward to. And There's a lot to celebrate. There's a lot to enjoy in life, but also I think especially as Christians and as patriots and as people who love their families, love their country, it is so incumbent on you and me to understand the depths of evil and depravity in this world so that you can take the appropriate steps to protect yourself and especially your family and children. And so we're going to be talking about that here on West Watch. So if you're a follower of mine, if you're a viewer of mine, you probably already have heard about this rape gang inquiry report that highlights the atrocities happening, but also that have happened over the course of several decades since the 50s in the UK by gangs of Pakistani Muslims who have systematically, like truly, I know that word is so bastardized today because the left has used it so much to say systematic racism to justify giving preferential treatment to black and brown people and minorities and sexual deviants. But like truly, systematically, these women, these young girls especially, these young girls were brutalized, tortured, raped, kidnapped. Here we have the report. It was from Rupert Lowe. So Rupert Lowe, you guys all know him, but if you don't know him, he is the leader of Restore Britain. Restore Britain is probably the only political party in the UK that cares about the needs and the protection, the security of native Britons. That British people, they need to wake up, but they still keep voting for the Labour Party or the Reform Party. They're all feckless, they're all losers. They don't actually care about Britons and their needs. But Rupert Lowe released the Rape Gang Inquiry Report. And in this report is over 200-page report. And in it, it's horrifying. It's just testimony after testimony, story after story of the most horrifying stories that you can't even imagine, truly. And I'm going to read some to you. And this is only a few. This is a brief encapsulation of what has happened in the UK for the past several decades, but not only perpetrated and committed by these Muslim foreigners and these invaders, but abetted, allowed by their own government, the UK government that is supposed to protect its own citizens. They allowed this brutality, this savagery to continue for decades, since the 50s. Think about that, the 50s, right after World War II. So here's some of the things that have happened. Girls as young as 11 were befriended by young Muslim men plied with alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes, then collected from school gates or care homes and taxis. They were taken to houses, flats, restaurants, and hotels where they were raped repeatedly by groups of men in the dozens, passed around like property. They were beaten, threatened. And while this happened, they were called white trash or kuffar, who deserved this torture, this brutality, this rape. These young girls, they were dragged into red rooms of extreme torture. They were doused in gasoline, threatened, actually being put on fire. They're threatened with guns, forced to watch brutal rapes of other girls, filmed for blackmail. Some endured daily rapes for years. Many of these women, these young girls, became pregnant while still children. Some miscarried from trauma. Others were forced to have abortions with knitting needles. A number gave birth and have their babies removed by the state. One girl was raped by a dog while men bet on whether it would vaginally or anally penetrate her. You had glass bottles, keys, baseball bats, and other objects forced inside of them, some of them shattering inside of them. These victims were trafficked between towns and cities in the UK, and some of them trafficked into the Middle East for Islamic marriages. Networks used taxis and coordinated operations to supply girls to multiple perpetrators. And the worst part about all of this is that the UK government, the social workers that are supposed to protect these young girls, these children, they were in on it. I just mentioned the marriages. Some of the social workers attended the marriages. quote-unquote marriages. Think about how absurd and obscene and ridiculous that is. That the social workers that are supposed to protect these children who are being abused and raped, they attended the forced marriages to their Muslim perpetrators and predators. But police, they ignored reports. They ignored reports because they didn't want to be called or seen as racist. They lost evidence, which means they got rid of the evidence, right? Bags of victim clothing, fingerprints, anything that would help identify the perpetrators and prove unequivocally that these victims were brutalized and assaulted and raped, even killed. And even sometimes, the police criminalized the girls instead. There's one girl who posted about how she was a victim of these rape gangs on Facebook. The post went viral, and then within 30 minutes, the police showed up at her doorstep. They showed up at her doorstep, and they arrested her. They threw her into prison for posting her testimony and her story on the internet instead of the men who raped and brutalized her. Social services, social workers, they return children to known abusers. The NHS staff, they treated repeated STIs, genital injuries, and pregnancies in these minors, but often failed to safeguard or refer them to the proper authorities. And actually, they returned them back to their abusers. Schools excluded victims rather than protecting them. And then you might think, why didn't they report it? They did report it. Why didn't the families report it? They did report it. But whistleblowers, they faced retaliation. They were targeted. They were debanked. Their assets freezed. They were raided, bankrupted. The parents, people like Tommy Robinson, whose cousin was a victim of these rape gangs, the families of these victims were viciously and aggressively attacked and silenced by the UK government. The UK government literally forced the media to withhold the ethnicities and identities of these rape gang members. You had current Prime Minister Keir Starmer, when he was the director of public prosecutions in the UK, he let go of over 13,000 of these offenders with a warning letter. Yet detectives, they're told to stop antagonizing minorities when detectives actually try to look into these issues and these cases. That is but a glimpse. That is but a glimpse of what has happened in the UK systematically for the past 70 years. 250,000 young girls. And that's only the girls that we know. That is the minimum of girls, of families who are willing to come out and share their story. And by the way, these girls are heroes. And you know me, I'm not a feminist. I'm not all about beating your chest and being a boss babe, but truly these women are brave. These women who are raped, tortured, brutalized for years. Some of these girls were raped daily for years. Years! And they had the bravery to come out, the courage. Imagine how horrifying it is to come out and share your story, especially if you're blackmailed. If you're filmed, that humiliation of all of it, it's just, they're incredible. Like, these are the actual true brave patriots, not girls who create and lie, fabricate these rape allegations to hurt people and innocent men. And it is just so unbelievably atrocious and wicked how silent the left is on this, how silent the mainstream media is on this. I mentioned this on Instagram. People, the left, especially when I'm talking about people, but also normies, they lost their minds about Elon Musk becoming a trillionaire. They lose their minds about the UFC holding a Freedom 250 event on the White House lawn. They're freaking out about Rick Chow, who shot Cyrus Carmick Belton in self-defense to protect himself and his child, his son. They freaked out about Carmelo Anthony being convicted of murder, which he was a murderer. They freaked out. The internet, the entirety of the internet freaked out about the Mexican fan who made squinty eyes against a Korean influencer, who, by the way, just grifted off of that. And now she has more followers than she did. And then she also got a free invite to the World Cup game by FIFA. They freak out about Alex Preddy, Renee Good, these leftist terrorists who are antagonizing, agitating, and terrorizing ICE agents. They were assaulting them, almost ran over one. They say that the ICE agents shooting these terrorists, these leftist anarchists, that is such, they lose their minds. They lose their minds. They lose their minds when you say that we should protect babies in the womb and not punish them for the crime of the father. Yet where are they? Where are you? Where are you? The ones who cry about gang rapes of the past, where are you? Right now, when this is happening in your faces, to the tunes of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of young girls subjected to this, where are you? Oh, you don't care because it's brown people doing it. You don't care because it'll disprove and undercut your multiculturalism, mass migration narrative. You are scum. Genuinely. If you look at this story and your initial inclination is to laugh, by the way, there was this Jewish woman who laughed at this. And people are saying she dedicates her life to helping sex trafficking victims. No, she doesn't. Do you know how we all know that she doesn't? She charges. She makes the victims pay money in order to have their stories heard, in order to get help. She charges them money. You have leftists on the internet who, if they did comment on this, they denied that it was happening. They say, oh, it's such an obscene amount of... It's just too much. It's unrealistic. How is that your response? Your initial response to this report, which is corroborated by a plethora of evidence, by the way, your response is, oh, that's too much. I don't believe it. Are you kidding me? Public court documents, media articles, investigations, headlines, eyewitness testimonies, public testimonies of social workers, of detectives, of officers, of the victims themselves, their families, police reports. What do you mean there's no evidence to show this? This was a publicly funded report where they spent weeks upon weeks upon weeks upon weeks compiling all the necessary information and data from trusted sources, from witness testimonies, and your response is to say it didn't happen? Have you lost your mind? You have lost your mind. What happened to believe victims? What happened to believe all women? These psychopaths will believe all of the racial hoaxes, all of the rape allegations, as long as it comes from people that they don't like. They continuously, still to this day, call Trump a pedophile, where there is zero evidence to suggest that. There are tons of things you can criticize Trump for, but to lie constantly about that, see that his name was so much over the Epstein files, and you look at the Epstein files, and the only thing that you find out from looking at the Epstein files is that Epstein hated Trump because Trump was the one who reported Epstein and his degeneracy and his operations to law enforcement. They continuously freak out about that. But they have nothing to say about 250,000, 250,000 young British girls who were raped, tortured, brutalized, even killed and murdered because a brown person did it. It is absurdity. You guys are evil. The leftists who condone this, who look the other way, who gaslight us that it's not happening, while you focus on non-issues, you continuously lie. You're demons. You are demons. The Christian needs to understand this, that these people aren't just motivated by what you and I are motivated by, which is love for your family, love for your country, a desire for goodness in society, for order, for beauty, a pursuit of the fullness of the truth. These people aren't motivated by that. You have to understand the modern left today is gravely evil. They're possessed by, they're motivated by demonic forces. Like, these people are demons. Like, how else do you describe them? They know that these things are happening, but then yet they lie to your faces, to our faces, and they don't feel a single ounce of grief or outrage at these stories. It's horrifying. So they will believe any racial hoax. You had that racial hoax that happened this past week. I won't go into depth, but it was a gay leftist Asian student who burned a cross on fire. And the left was freaking out about how the KKK is back. And turns out it was just this gay leftist boba Asian. But they ran with it with no evidence whatsoever. They lied about it. They create these narratives. They freak out about things that haven't happened. I mean, just remember the Jussie Smollett hoax? This is MAGA country. Complete fabricated lies. They lose their minds over that. They cry and they weep for criminals like George Floyd. Yet they have nothing to say. They feel no grief about young girls being actually brutalized because the people who did it were brown. 87 to 95% of the perpetrators of these rape gangs were Muslim, mainly of Pakistani origin, but also Iraqi, Afghani, Turkish, Somali, Iranian origin, North African origin. We also just got breaking news just now that the Morocco captain of the Morocco national soccer team has been just charged with rape. Listen to the stories of soldiers who served time in Iraq and Afghanistan. The stories of how disgustingly degenerate the men are in these countries. Bestiality is the norm. Rape gangs is the norm, especially of young girls. How do we know? Well, think about it. The originator, the founder of their religion, the founder of Islam, married a 6-year-old and consummated the marriage when she was 9, which means he had sex with her when she was 9. Sorry to be graphic, but that's what it is. How is that not pedophilia? That is absolutely pedophilia. Islam, by nature, all it is, it's a degenerate sex cult, much like the LGBTQ. It is a sex cult. The most basic, normal things in society, playing music, eating certain meat, is haram. Owning a dog, it's haram. Yet pimping out and sleeping with young girls is not. So what do you think is going to happen when you import mass hordes, millions upon millions of these kind of people who come from rape cultures? The founder of their religion is an unashamed pedo that no Muslim can denounce that, by the way. They never can denounce it. You watch all of these debates, they never denounce it. What do you think is going to happen when you import these people? Yes, they're going to subject your daughters to this kind of brutality that I just described. They're motivated by Muslim superiority and supremacy. So they think that they can do whatever they want to non-Muslims, which is why they target young white British girls. It's just disgusting. It's disgusting. They force-fed them so that they could gain weight because some of these Somali men who are gang raping these girls, they like their women plump. I mean, just such just disgusting things that we can never imagine in the first world as normal people. Yet this was happening on a mass scale, on a scope unprecedented for decades. And yet the left is silent. They don't care. You share this with normies, you tell this to normies, they don't care because they're all NPCs. They're all scumbags that they don't actually care about victims. In the same way, they only care about Epstein when they could leverage it against Trump. Meanwhile, they didn't care about it at all during the Biden administration. Because why? They knew if they freaked out during the Biden administration, Democrats would have to be responsible for releasing the Epstein files. But all of these things, they're just cudgels. All these issues they just use it as a cudgel against people they don't like. Meanwhile, they say nothing when actual children, young girls, are brutalized, tortured, raped on a scale unprecedented. This is objectively worse than what Epstein has done. This is objectively worse than anything that they freak out about. But they're silent. Why? Because it goes against their mass immigration narrative to destroy civilization, but also, very simply, because the perpetrators were brown, because they were of a protected class. Like I mentioned, this is documented that police, law enforcement, politicians, social workers, all of these people, they did nothing because they didn't want to be seen as racist or Islamophobic. That social workers returned these children to their abusers. That there was an instance where a police officer literally dropped off a young girl to a rape gang and said, enjoy, have fun with her. Even if it weren't true, isn't it supposed to be believe all victims? Isn't that the motto of the left? Wasn't that the whole point of Me Too? And these same feminists scream and yell about how 1 in 4 girls are raped. Yet you think that 250,000 young girls being raped and tortured and brutalized by Muslim gangs is unrealistic? No, you guys are scumbag for the very reason the reason why, and I'm not being simplistic, by the way, because this is actually motivates them. And this is actually their line of thinking. Just because the perpetrators of this mass systematic rape of young girls, because they were brown, they deny it. Because they were brown, they don't care. How do I know this? I'm going to show you a clip. This is from Jubilee. And this is Vosh, the most degenerate leftist streamer, aside from Destiny and Hassan, that exists. And he's watching a Jubilee episode where my friend Sydney Watson is sharing about a story of being sexually assaulted, but then no one did anything because the perpetrator and the assaulter was brown. And then watch Vosh's response to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny because I'm over here.
You know what? Okay, I'm gonna... Here, wait, hold on. I should probably move my webcam down because I'm, like, blocking their faces. I've been doing it the whole video.
It's coming up right here.
I just want to say, do you think it maybe speaks a little bit to the fact that we have a rape culture when we put 6 people in a room together to talk about Me Too, and when they're like, hey, who of you have experienced sexual assault, and the 4 women sit down and they've all been raped and they all can barely choke out a coherent sentence. Do we think this perhaps maybe slightly speaks to the fact that there's a problem? Like, Me Too has gone too far. False allegations are ruining people's lives. Okay. Who among you have experienced sexual assault? And, like, every woman in the room starts crying? Like, what? I almost every female friend I have has been the recipient of sexual assault or violence or rape or whatever at some point in their lives. Seriously, it's such a common thing. I think 1 in 4 is probably understating it significantly. I wouldn't be surprised if the rate for sexual assault on women over one's lifetime was as high as 1 in 3 or 1 in 2. We just don't know because nobody fucking reports, because reports aren't taken seriously. That's what Me Too is about.
You're like, I don't think things are on the same level, but things impact you in like bizarre ways. But yeah, like because the perpetrator wasn't white, and because he was like, I'm, you know, part of like a certain religion.
Wait, are we being real?
And the police were basically just like, we can't because of cultural differences, which I don't feel like is such a good.
What? Bullshit! Are you fucking kidding me? Did she turn her fucking rape confession onto how the rape refugees fucking Ahmed Muhammad raped her and the police were like, oh, we can't persecute brown people? Bullshit! Bullshit!
There is your proof. That's exactly how they react. He said, I'm pretty sure it's probably 1 in 2. Oh, the reports aren't taken seriously, and we show them with evidence. The reason why they're not taken seriously is because the majority of people doing this are these Muslim rape gangs, these migrants. And the reason why they can't do anything is because of cultural differences. This is true, by the way. You can read the Rape Gang Inquiry Report. And we show them, hey, actually, yeah, maybe all these reports aren't taken seriously because of this reason. Police don't do anything because the perpetrator isn't white. It's just a cultural difference. We don't want to be racist. We want to be accepting and diverse and tolerant. And he's like, oh, BS. He says BS. That's exactly how they think. And this is why it's so deeply evil. This is exactly how they think. It's not simplistic. As long as you're black or you're brown, you should be able to get away with anything, rape anyone. That's how they think. These leftists in the West, this is exactly how they think. It's not simplistic. This is literally their frame for morals. Their entire moral framework is based on if you're black or you're brown, you should be able to get away with doing anything to anyone who is white or lighter skin complexion. I mean, it's just absurd. It is an absolute absurdity. Oh, but Kangmin, didn't the Mexican man get canceled for doing his squinty eyes to Asians? Yeah, because if the minority, quote unquote, is doing something that is right-wing coded, they see them as a traitor. And so people will treat traitors worse than their enemies. They view traitors worse than their enemies. That's why, for example, the entire Bobalib Asian community online hates me because they see me as a traitor to the leftist cause. The same thing why people constantly rag on, say the most insanely vitriolic, hateful things to my black friends online because they're traitors, because they're normal, conservative, Christian patriots. This is just, it's so unbelievable how evil these people are, where they don't care about this issue because the perpetrators were predominantly Muslim and predominantly Pakistani. So that's why I say this all the time. This is such a big wake-up call for why democracy doesn't work. And the reality is, public opinion consensus is actually top down. It's actually not bottom up. Yes, you can have bottom up impact and grassroots impact. That's all true. But the most influence you're going to have in a society is always going to be top down. That's why the priority of the conservative and the Christian always must be to amass power, to wield it for just and righteous causes. It always has to be, because it always is top down. How do I know this? The reason why the left is so powerful in this country is because they control all the institutions of power. All the levers of power that steer the direction of this country and define the zeitgeist, namely our educational institutions. Think about our colleges. Think about our professors. Think about the people in the bureaucratic administrative state who have been there, the unelected bureaucrats who've been there for decades, not elected by Trump. Think about the corrupt judges. Think about the lawmakers in Congress, in our state halls, city halls. Think about our celebrities, the influencers. It's all controlled by the left. So that's why the culture is left-wing. It's not organic. These people seize the institutions, and then now they're wielding power and influence over these institutions. Democracy is not going to cut it. Us just grassroots being organic on the internet is not just always going to cut it. We need to get in power and wield power and do so optically. But that's the most effective way we're going to change. Because how do you think that Nayib Bukele in El Salvador changed his country overnight? He got into power, got rid of all the corrupt judges, and he ruled with an iron fist. And everyone loves him. He created public consensus. That's what good leaders do. They don't acquiesce or bow down to public consensus. They create it. Why? And how? Through their charisma. They do it through their charisma. They do it through good policy. They do it through being a personable person and not weird and erratic, but also doing things that tangibly change people's lives for the better. That's what we need to do. And instead of doing that, the UK is banning social media for teenagers under 16, children and teenagers under the age of 16. So they banned Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X. But you know what they didn't ban? They didn't ban Blue Sky. And you know Blue Sky, we all know, it's known for being the Twitter for pedophiles. They had, at its inception, they still have a problem with child sexual abuse material. Like there's an article right here from 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. Blue Sky sees surge in new users and child sexual abuse materials. That's what Blue Sky is known for, and they still continuously, to this day, struggle with it. It is a den of predators and pedophiles, the most degenerate leftist scumbags and dirtbags. Oh, but that's not banned on UK social media ban because it's not about protecting children. They've never been about protecting children like we talked about. Why do they ban it? Because they don't want the truth to get out. Think about what happened in Ireland after the man was almost beheaded by the Sudanese migrant. People were pissed. Look at the response to Henry Nowak. If we didn't have X, we wouldn't know about it. People are pissed, and people are getting pissed. And unless there's a viable political solution and people are voted out of power, things will get really ugly very quickly. And I don't want to see that. But unless the leaders stop being such traitors, because this is a betrayal of the UK citizenry, unlike we've seen ever before, because typically the government prioritizes and helps its citizens. It doesn't allow their daughters to be mass raped by hordes of foreigners, a Muslim rape gangs. That's not what a government does. It's supposed to protect its people, restrain evil, punish evil, promote good. Yeah, and insofar as the UK does not do that, the government doesn't do that, the people will revolt. It's said even in our Constitution in America. Actually, sorry, not Constitution, Declaration of Independence. It says that if the government doesn't serve these functions for protecting life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, then the people have a moral obligation to change the government. So things are getting really ugly. I just pray. I pray for justice. That's, I think, one thing that we can do, just being across the ocean from the UK. But just praying for justice, raising awareness. You need to share the story with your friends and your family. They need to know what's going on. Because this is also happening in America. The child trafficking and the exploitation happening in America, it is obscene. It is out of control. You need to protect your children. Protect your family. Protect your daughters and your sons too. There are young boys who are involved in this as well, but it's mostly girls. We got to take steps to protect our country and our family. Because if the government's not going to do it, you sure as hell need to do it for yourself. May there be justice. Let's continue to pray for the victims and their families. Let's pray for justice to be done. But Lord, like, please come and save our civilization from this grave, grave evil, from these scourges. And ultimately, I'll end with this. You are not a hateful person for objecting to mass immigration from the third world of people who hate your culture, who hate you, hate your country and its history, and see your country merely as a plot of land to pillage and your people just objects to exploit and rape. There's nothing wrong with being against that. And you must be against that. We must be. If we want to have a civilization again, if we want to have a society again, if you want to protect the most vulnerable in society, you must be against mass immigration. And if you're not, I question your sanity and I question your morality. Now let's move on to what's happening in Korea on Eastwatch. So we've covered previously on this program the mass protests that have erupted throughout Korea, all across the country, but mainly centralized in Seoul because of the ballot shortages and the election mismanagement of the June 3rd local elections in Korea. So people were pissed, especially the young generation, the next generation, the Gen Z, millennials, 20s and 30s. They were out on the streets marching, making their voices heard. They're pissed because, rightfully so, how do you have ballot shortages? It is a failure of proportions unlike we've seen before. It is truly embarrassing and humiliating for Korea to conduct their elections in such a way. And whether or not it was intentional, which it certainly could have been. It certainly could have been. And that's what a lot of people think it is. But certainly, whether you believe there was intentional fraud or not, there was a mismanagement there, 100%. And so people were calling for re-election. And the deadline for deciding on a re-election for the local elections was yesterday. It was June 18th. Today is currently Friday, June 19th. And yeah, they're not having it. So President Lee Jae-myung of Korea, he just came back from his trip in Europe today. And yeah, they're not doing it. Like I said previously on this program, people need to understand that the left doesn't care. Like, they genuinely do not care about fairness, about equality, about impartiality, and having a standard. If the left has any standards, it's a double standard. That is true across every single country, especially the first world countries. They don't care. They will do whatever it is to stay in power, to win, to wield power. And that's what the right wing needs to understand. Stop holding on to abstractions of principle. So there's that. And so I think because of that, people understand, especially in Korea, that nothing's really going to happen, unfortunately. But even if you wanted something to happen, Koreans need to understand this. You need to get into office. You need to get into power so that you can do the things that you want to do in a society. You can implement the changes, the policies in society, but also in your government that you want to see. So then a lot of the dissident right-wingers are saying, there's no point. The People Power Party has betrayed us. We will start a new party with the Freedom Innovation Party. We will not vote anymore for the People Power Party. Screw them. It's like, no, that's not going to work. That didn't work in America. That's not going to work in Korea. So if you want to model what America has done in its elections and how we got Trump elected into office, you have to understand you need to build coalitions. You got to push forward and leverage the two-party system in order to implement your agenda. That's what you got to do. And I don't understand. I don't know if it's because there's Koreans in Korea, especially the dissident right-wingers, who don't understand how to navigate politics. You know, these are the same people who, if you guys watch my channel, I did an interview with Paul Sung-won Kim of Ground C. He's one of the largest conservative voices in Korea, and he got canceled. He lost over 100,000 subscribers, nearly 100,000 subscribers, because he was working with the People Power Party for elections, to get people elected, and to try to help steer Korea in a better direction. He got canceled for that by people in the right wing. It's like so unbelievably unserious. And you can't do politics that way. That's not how you do politics. Now, all that being said, Lee Jae-myung, he came back from his Europe trip, which he wrapped it up by going to the G7 summit. And he just got back. And he posted this on X, and a lot of people were talking about it. But he talked with President Trump at the G7 summit. So this is what he said on X. Last night, during a dinner with President Trump, we had a deep conversation for about 90 minutes on the peace of the Korean Peninsula and the ROK-US relationship, and there was significant progress. At today's final luncheon, he gifted me the signing pen that had been used up to that point. I suspect it might be because of the memory of receiving the pen I used during our first summit meeting as a gift. During yesterday's dinner, while talking about golf, he said he would play golf with my wife and I, so me and my wife hooked pinkies to seal the promise. So that kind of sounds weird. I know, it's just pinky promise. And after today's luncheon, as we parted, he reiterated that we must definitely play golf together. I thought it was just passing talk, but it seems like preparations are in order for the golf. I am grateful to President Trump, who has shown much special interest. The ROK-US relationship is solid and eternal. And so you see there, Lee Jae-myung with Trump's pen, and that's President Trump and Lee Jae-myung together at dinner after the G7 summit. So that's a dinner for the G7 summit. They sat next to each other and they talked for 90 minutes to 2 hours about politics, about the Korean Peninsula, and Trump invited Lee Jae-myung to play golf with him. Now, one thing I'll say is when Americans typically say, hey, let's do this sometime, let's meet up again, let's go golfing, like they genuinely mean it. In Korean culture, a lot of people say, 또 보자, 나중에 보자, 또 만나자, 시간 되면 밥 먹자, right? They say, like, let's see you again. Oh, if you have time, let's grab a meal. But a lot of it is just polite talk. A lot of the times, at least in my experience and from what I can tell in Korean culture, they don't mean it. It's just a good, okay, bye. And you gotta like never see them again. So I've experienced that quite a bit. I know a lot of Koreans have also experienced that, and that's just kind of part of Korean culture. But if Trump says, hey, let's golf, he means it. He wants to golf with Lee Jae-myung. Now, there's a lot of people on the internet who say that, oh, he's lying. I don't think that Lee Jae-myung is going to lie publicly and squander his relationship with Trump. I don't think he's going to do that. Like Lee Jae-myung he's not a smart man. I don't think he's a good leader, but he's a good politician. He's good at navigating the public discourse. He is good at PR. Right? When he was at the Vatican, he took pictures and selfies with a bunch of Korean nuns at the Vatican. People loved it. Because, yeah, it's personable. It's fun. It's like he cares for the people, and he's there greeting Korean nuns. He's very good with PR. That's why he, compared to President Yoon, has many more, I think more than 10 times more Instagram followers. Because he does PR well. And he's a good politician. So I don't think he's going to lie about Trump in public and on the internet for everyone to see, because Trump is very attuned to what's happening online. And so I don't think Trump would like that. Now, that being said, the glaze from the mainstream media in Korea has been so preposterous. It is the same. I am telling you. I always will reiterate, American culture war and political dynamics don't chart neatly and one-to-one in Korea. But the mainstream media glazing a left-wing president, it's just true everywhere. You saw how much they glazed Obama. You saw how much they glazed Biden when clearly Biden was mentally handicapped and an Alzheimer's patient. They did that with Lee Jae-myung right here. Look at these headlines. Look at these title cards. Look at these thumbnails. Like in green in the first one, it says 이 대통령 붙잡고 안놔주는 트럼프. It's saying like Trump is holding on to Egypt, but he won't let go. It's like, what? Oh my gosh, it's so funny. It's like if the one on the right is like 트럼프 난 이재명 바라기. It's like, oh, I really want 이재명. What? It's so funny. Like this one here, 질투 폭발. Jealousy explosion. 이재명 발견하자 눈빛 변한 트럼프. As soon as he saw 이재명, Trump's eyes shifted. His 눈빛, like what is that? Eyesight? How do you even like translate that? it's like the way that you look at someone, like because Noon is eyes and Pete is like light, so it's like the way that your eyes sparkle. Basically, they're saying that Trump's eyes were sparkling the moment he noticed Lee Jae-myung. It's like, bro, the glaze. Like, not even mainstream media in America glazes left-wing presidents this much. And this is for NBC. NBC is a major, one of the biggest, if not biggest, news outlets, news stations in Korea. And this is how they're presenting Trump and Lee Jae-myung at G7. Oh, man. Like right there. Lee Jae-myung 옆에 앉고 싶은데, oh, Trump wants to sit next to Lee Jae-myung so badly. Oh, it's so unbelievable. It's so unbelievable. We have some more too, just if you want to take a look. But yeah, it's just basically just glazing. Lee Jae-myung saying how much Trump loves him. It's just so unbelievable. This is why there's so many people, especially right-wingers, who are sick of the media in Korea. Now, to be fair, the institutional mainstream media has still more mainstream appeal, and there's still a lot more people who listen to mainstream media than they do alternative media in Korea. That being said, yeah, they're losing trust. A lot of the NBC is losing trust. I think it was also NBC that called Build Up Korea, the conference that I spoke at, far right. When objectively, they're not far right at all. They're pretty normie right. It's all about freedom, democracy, liberal democracy, freedom. Just very normie, conservative, right-wing points. Like, they're not like me. Like, I'm an authoritarian. I believe in freedom, but I believe that freedom is shaped by, political powers keeping evil at bay and creating safeguards and guardrails for people to flourish. I believe that freedom needs limits and standards. And so it's like that's a little more right. That's much more right wing in the truest sense than the normie conservative who is more libertarian than they are actually paleo conservative. Like I'm obviously much more right wing in that way, but Build Up Korea is just a pretty normal Christian conservative movement in Korea. Like Mina Kim is not some far right crazy person, but yet they called it far right. I mean, that's why people are losing trust, even in Korea, from mainstream media. Now, all that being said, what is our takeaway? What is our takeaway from this? Are things good between Trump and Lee Jae-myung? And I would say yes. Trump has a good relationship with President Lee Jae-myung in the same way he had a good relationship with President Yoon. Obviously, President Yoon was a lot more and unabashedly pro-America than President Lee Jae-myung is. Now, I think there's going to be a lot of Koreans who hear when I say President Lee Jae-myung, and they're going to not like that because they don't acknowledge him as the president. But he has a good relationship. That's why he offered to play golf, and they had a cordial exchange. And here's some of the things that... So of course, Lee Jae-myung came back from his Europe trip from G7, and he had a press conference today. And he talked... This is some of what he said, and we'll play a clip very soon about... what he's like, there's a clip of what he said about North Korea and the relationship that the Korean Peninsula has with America. But here's some of the things that he said that he talked to President Trump about. President Trump kept saying that I was a strong leader. I understood that as a positive evaluation as respect towards me. It's like, okay, dude. I genuinely don't think that Trump thinks that Lee Jae-myung is a strong leader. He probably just said that to make sure that Lee Jae-myung is on Trump's side, which is good. That's how Trump is a good diplomat. Trump is such an effective communicator. This is why people love him. If it weren't for the lies and the smears of leftist retards online and the retard right online, and also from people who hate him, the mainstream media, these activists who masquerade as journalists, if it wasn't for these people shaping public opinion about Trump, like all people would love Trump. Everyone loved Trump before he became president. And everyone who interacts with Trump in person loves him. He's a people guy, but he is the king of lip service. He loves talking your ear off. So I don't genuinely think that he thinks that Lee Jae-myung is a great president, great leader. He's just probably saying oh, you're a strong leader for South Korea. Thank you. It's probably just small talk, but Lee Jae-myung is so happy. He's like, oh yeah. He thinks I'm a positive leader. He has so much respect for me. And then on top of that, the leftist media, They glaze him like crazy. But he also said this, and I think this is actually really, really good. He said that, unfortunately, the reality is that all means of communication with North Korea have been cut off. North Korea now says that South Korea, we, are the most hostile state in the world. We are no longer one national community. And so when they say national community, they say, I think, 민족 공동체. So like everyone knows that North Koreans, South Koreans, we're all Koreans. We all come from the same bloodline and heritage. But North Korea doesn't see South Korea in that way. They see it as a completely separate entity. And for so long, the left in Korea didn't understand this. But this is actually a good acknowledgement from Lee Jae-myung, because now he understands that you can't just use the sunshine policy. At least that's what I think he's trying to say. But yeah, he goes on, he says, we are two hostile states. Even the emergency communication lines have all been disconnected. And he said, if North Korea accumulates nuclear material beyond what it believes is necessary for regime survival, the temptation to export that material could grow. That would create a very serious danger. And Trump agreed with that point. Yes. So what Lee Jae-myung is saying there actually is all correct. And I'm not so blindly partisan to think that everything that Lee Jae-myung does is terrible and everything that he says is incorrect. Because, first of all, he's not going to lie. He's not going to lie. What is the incentive for him to lie on the world stage publicly for all his people in a press conference, something that Trump can hear? And that would sour completely the relationship that he has with America. Now, yes, he is a little too anti-America and a little too pro-China. That's all true. But he wouldn't outwardly lie about his conversation with Trump. That would completely jeopardize his relationship with America. That'd be suicide and political suicide. Now, I want to play this video real quick of South Korean President Lee Jae-myung. This is going to be in Korean, so if you are watching along, we do have the subtitles there translated for you. But this is him talking about the role of America on the Korean Peninsula and how important the United States is for peace negotiations on the Korean Peninsula. Watch.
상황을 조성해야 됩니다. 제가 북한 한반도 문제에 대해서 어찌 잘못 들어보면 비주체적인 표현일 수 있는 얘기를 했죠. 트럼프 대통령 피스메이커이고 우리는 페이스메이커다. 원래 뭐 이렇게 말하면 좀 그렇죠. 우리의 문제는 우리 스스로 해결해야 되는데 왜 미국 대통령이 그런 표현을 했느냐라는 지적을 굳이 한다면 할 수도 있을 겁니다. 뭐 이번에도 똑같은 얘기를 트럼프 대통령한테 드렸는데 어쨌든 한반도 문제를 완화하기 위한 또는 평화 공존을 가능하게 하기 위한 그 길을 여는 데는 우리 대한민국 스스로 하기가 어려운 상황이 됐어요. 너무 많은 것들을 망가뜨리고 다 스스로 차단했고 공격적 태도를 통해서 모든 길을 봉쇄해 버렸죠. 그러나 북한은 북한 체제 안전에 가장 관건적 역할을 하는 것은 미국이라고 생각하고 있고 또 현실적으로 정전협정의 당사자는 한국은 아니죠. 우린 서명도 못했으니까요. 우리는 전시작전권이 없었으니까 휴전 서명의 당사자가 아니었던 겁니다. 그래서 휴전협정도 미국하고 맺었기 때문에 모든 한반도 안보와 체제 보존에 관한 핵심 역할은 미국이 한다 이렇게 믿고 있어요. 뭐 일부는 현실이기도 하죠. 그래서 미국을 중심으로 대화하도록 하고 우리는 그런 상황을 조성하기 위해서 노력해야 되는 거죠.
Okay, so a lot of things he said there, but in summary, you see in the caption here, he did say that Trump is the peacemaker and we want to be peacemakers. He also says that North Korea believes that the United States plays the central role in matters concerning security and regime survival on the Korean Peninsula. Therefore, dialogue needs to be centered on the United States while we do our part to create the conditions that make such dialogue possible. This is all good because a little background with the armistice agreement that was signed in 1953 on the Korean Peninsula to quote-unquote conclude the Korean War, which it didn't actually. We're still technically at war because it was only an armistice. South Korean forces and South Korea actually didn't sign it. Why? Because Lee Seung-man, the leader of South Korea at the time and the first South Korean president, he didn't acknowledge North Korea as a separate entity. He didn't want to, and he wanted to have one Korea. So he refused to sign it. So it was signed by China, it was signed by North Korea, and then it was also signed by the UN forces, and then led by America. So Lee Jae-myung says, and he understands this, which is correct, that without America, you cannot even consider or conceptualize arriving at a peace agreement with North Korea because America was the one who signed the armistice agreement, not South Korea. So you need America involved. And Lee Jae-myung at least understands that, so then he wouldn't jeopardize completely his relationship with America and Trump. There's no need to. And so I think that's correct. And what he was talking about with North Korea, he says, at this point, North Korea, their attitude is so aggressive against South Korea. We mentioned previously on this program that North Korea took out all efforts of reunification with South Korea from their constitution. They took it out. So they have no point or interest in reunifying with South Korea. We also talked about how their mutual defense pact with Russia shows that they're also not interested in invading South Korea. I'm not sure if Lee Jae-myung understands that, but he does understand that North Korea has blocked all communications. And just with North Korea, South Korea together, their communications, it will not achieve peace. They need a mediator, and namely, they need America. And that's all true. That's all good. Why? Because for so long, the left in Korea, they had a sunshine policy. And that comes from, it's called sunshine. It comes from one of Aesop's fables about how if you are continuously kind to your enemies, you're kind to someone, eventually they'll let their walls down and they'll open up to you. And then, yeah, like, we'll all get along. And yes, on an interpersonal level, that's true. When you have someone who's really callous and really, they just hate you, and you continuously shower them with kindness, there's that phrase, kill them with kindness, yeah, they'll open up to you. But that doesn't chart to geopolitics. It doesn't. So I think finally Lee Jae-myung is acknowledging that, hey, we can't get through North Korea. They're very aggressive against South Korea. They hate us. They see us as a separate entity altogether. They don't see us as the same people. We can't do this without America. And that's all true. Like, the approach cannot be any more from the left in Korea to be soft on North Korea and just give them aid. You know, smuggle in some food and supplies to North Koreans. That's just not gonna help. That's not gonna work. It hasn't worked, and it will no longer work as North Korea starts to solidify and consolidate power economically, but also secure trade deals and arms deals with Russia and China. It's not gonna work. And he understands that, I think, at least it seems like from this press conference. And so that's a good, positive development because now you're understanding, okay, we can't just play around and tiptoe and just treat Korea like the little younger brother because they don't see South Korea that way. And so, that being said, Trump actually posted this on Truth Social last week. He randomly posted a photo with himself with Kim Jong-un. And this is around the time when they kind of were already, or they were about to solidify the terms of the peace agreement with Iran. He posts this photo of him walking with Kim Jong-un. What could this mean? And so actually, Lee Jae-myung confirmed this at the press conference as well. He asked Trump about that photo, and Trump confirmed that he himself did post this photo. And with all of the conversations that Lee Jae-myung had with Trump about North Korea and about Korean Peninsula, I do think that truly, that Trump's next foreign policy goal will be the Korean Peninsula. Now that they've arrived at a peace agreement, they're about to sign it with Iran to conclude their excursions in the Middle East to prevent Iran from having a nuke, or at least, subvert or slow down their developments of getting a nuke. Now that America has accomplished that and gotten what they wanted, yeah, they're moving on. By the way, people keep saying that Trump is just doing Israel's bidding. I do think that Israel is a part and a component of what the Trump cabinet is doing, but it's not everything. Israel's pissed. Israel's pissed at the peace deal. Why? Because they want war. Israel wants war. They are so war hungry. But I think this just goes to show that Trump is not beholden to Israel completely. It's just, they always say that he's getting railed by Bibi Netanyahu. I'm like, okay, just let's be serious. But now that they have accomplished what they wanted in Iran for the time being, I do believe that Trump's next focus, as we see with a little foreshadow with that photo of him and Kim Jong-un, will be peace on the Korean Peninsula. And I think he'll do whatever it takes to do so. And Lee Jae-myung publicly acknowledges that they need the help of the United States, both, of course, logistically, because the United States was the party that signed the armistice, but also just on a realistic level as well. They need America to intervene and to help mend relations and bring relations into a better place between North and South Korea. And that should be a good positive development. This is actually something good that we can credit and say, okay, Lee Jae-myung is doing something good here. Why? Because that's what we want. What is the point of being at war, constantly being at war? Like, we don't want to be at war any longer on the Korean Peninsula. We want to have peace. We need to formalize that peace, and we need to do so as soon as possible. Now, do I think Lee Jae-myung is the guy for that? No, he's a weak leader. So that's why he understands that a strong leader like President Trump is needed. And as long as he acknowledges that, like, I think that's a positive development. But he kind of deludes himself into thinking, oh yeah, Trump said I'm a good leader. He thinks he really respects me. No, I really don't think he does. But ultimately, what I do think would be very helpful and feasible is to have a peace summit, like I mentioned before, previously on this program, between Russia, North Korea, South Korea, and America. And I think a peace agreement reached at a peace summit with those four entities actually could lead to peace on the Korean Peninsula, and then we can work towards reunification. But one thing that South Korea has to do, in the same way that North Korea has done, is to acknowledge North Korea as truly a separate entity for the time being. Show them that you do respect them, that they are a separate country with their own national interests. And I think that's what will allow them to come to the peace table to talk. Because it is really peace through strength. I believe that as a traditional conservative, that peace through strength. You're not going to achieve peace by acquiescing, by being nice and no, we're not going to achieve peace that way. Okay, so let's pray for peace on the Korean Peninsula, but look forward to it. I do believe that Trump's next foreign policy focus, now that the Iran war is wrapping up, will be the Korean Peninsula. That'll be epic. And we'll much more to come on that front, and stay tuned on this program to learn more about that. That being said, let's talk about what's going on in the MLB on Media Watch. By the way, today is Juneteenth. I totally didn't even realize it was Juneteenth until producer E mentioned that it's Juneteenth today. And who cares? Cancel me, who cares? Why? It's a local thing. It's when Texas was told that, hey, the Emancipation Proclamation happened. Slaves are free now. It's like we already have so many holidays. We're always bombarded with, well, like when slavery ended and black people were so oppressed. Like we're already so bombarded by that constantly. They constantly engage in historical revisionism, talking about how black people were always so great and white people were always so bad. So I'm just kind of sick of that. So Juneteenth, it should not be a federal holiday. I don't know why it's a federal holiday. It just gives credence to the black grievance politics and the racial grievance grifters who constantly leverage everyone's well-meaning sentiments about, hey, like, yeah, slavery was bad. We don't like torturing people and hurting people based on their different racial background. Like, they leverage that, and then they try to destroy your country. So we shouldn't even acknowledge, as conservatives, but also as sober-minded Christians, we shouldn't even acknowledge the framework of our enemies. Because one, it's not even true. And secondly, they're going to leverage that to continuously bulldoze over you and everything that you love. That being said, that leads us to this month is Pride Month. And then the MLB teams are all pretty much required to have Pride nights, where they have a night where they just celebrate how great butt sex is and how great grooming children and into their trans cult is. I don't know why, for the life of me, that is something to celebrate. It has never crossed my mind. I've never understood it. I don't think any normal person can conceptualize why it is a good thing to celebrate your deviant, perverted sexuality. Like, even for us normal people who have normal sexual relations, male and female, we're not going around, happy pride. I'm so proud to be straight. Straight pride. We're having a pride parade of being straight throughout the streets. No one's doing that. Why? Because it's normal. But it's also weird. Why would you be proud of your sexuality? And that's not something you're proud of. And especially as a Christian, you understand that this is sin. So why are you proud of your sin? Like, you shouldn't even adopt that framework. As Christians, you shouldn't always be like, you shouldn't even be, okay, they can celebrate their sexuality. Just don't bring our children to it. No, don't even accept that framing. Would you celebrate murderers being proud of being a murderer? Even as a small sin like a lie, which no sin is small, but obviously we believe in menial sins, we believe in mortal sins, and we obviously know that murder is worse than lying. We know that, for example, pedophilia is worse than stealing. So there's levels to this. But you wouldn't even say that someone who is a liar, a perpetual liar, they have an event. I'm so proud of lying. But that's so ridiculous. You wouldn't even accept that as a Christian. Then why do you accept the proposition and the framing that it is okay to be proud to be gay or trans or non-binary? Why are you accepting the framing that it is okay that they can be proud and celebrate sinning? Why? Don't even accept it. Like, do you understand how much your worldview has been warped and shaped by sin and a godless culture? This is what the Word of God, which is, it is Jesus, because Jesus was the Word and is the Word. He is the divine Logos. But this is what Paul means in Romans 12 when he says, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but by the renewing of your mind, you may be able to discern what God's will is. Like, this is what Paul means. Do not conform to their framing. Don't conform to the way that they see things. You must be firm in your foundation in Christ and the truth and the eternal truth of God's word, but also natural law, things that we all instinctively know. That's where you need to be founded on. Don't accept their framing. Now, that leads us to the MLB. MLB. So the Giants. So San Francisco Giants, they had a Pride night. And we had patriots, Christian patriots, rise up in defiance and on their cap write Bible verses where they acknowledge that the Bible verse in Genesis 9, where it talks about God making a promise to humanity that rainbow is a sign of a promise never to flood the earth again. The rainbow belongs to God. That's what they know, and that's what they believe. And then, alas, the MLB warns Giants pitchers who wore Bible verses on caps during Pride Night. Really? So here's what happened. 3 Giants pitchers were issued a warning from MLB, Major League Baseball, after they appeared in Friday's game against the Cubs with Bible verses written on their Pride Night caps. The league notified the players that similar behavior would not be tolerated in the future. Right-handed pitcher Landon Roop started Friday's game on the mound, etched his cap throughout the game with Genesis 9:12-16. The writing was a reference to the Bible verse Genesis 9:12-16. And so the MLB's chief communications officer, Pat Courtney, said, "The writing on the cap violates our rules, and consistent with normal practice, we have warned the players about future violations." And on top of Roop, we also have San Francisco's relief pitchers, JT Brubaker and Ryan Walker. They also took to the mound in Friday's game with Bible verses on their hats. You also have reliever Sam Hentges. He opted against wearing the Pride Night cap, entering the game with the team's standard black and orange cap, as opposed to the one with the rainbow logo. Roop was asked about his decision to write a Bible verse on his cap in his post-game media address. He explained his stance on the matter, saying, "It is just about God's covenant and a promise that he makes to us that, his faithfulness and his mercy. That's just kind of something I believe in, and I stand firm in that, and I'm thankful we live in a country where, we have the freedom to believe what we want and express what we want." And so the Giants issued a statement on the situation on Saturday, later saying, The San Francisco Giants are proud to support Pride Night and the LGBTQ plus community. Baseball should be a place where everyone feels welcome, respected, and valued. We also respect that individuals may make personal choices about participating in team activations. We understand that the choices by individual players have caused pain and anger to many in the LGBTQ plus community, and we are sorry for that. Those choices do not change our organization's commitment to inclusion, belonging, and creating a welcoming environment for all. We remain grateful to our fans, partners, employees, players, and coaches who help make Pride Night a meaningful celebration. Whenever they say inclusion, you must understand that they don't mean including Christian. It's including everything except Christianity and including everything except white people. That's what they genuinely mean. And I believe that so much of the irrational hatred that happens today in our culture war is, one, due to envy, but two, due to the fact that Europeans were responsible for the spread of Christianity throughout the past 2,000 years. That they were the ones that built up and spread Western civilization, which is synonymous and was synonymous with Christendom for nearly 2,000 years. America was a Christian nation, and it was an outpost of European civilization. That's why they hate white people. Like, I thought about this a lot. I'm like, why do they hate white people so much? And why do they not care when white British girls are raped and brutalized and killed by brown people? They don't care. Oh, because they deserved it because of colonization? No, there's that part of it. But because white people were the people who spread Christianity for most of Christian history. That's just an objective fact. You can hate me for that, but that's just an objective fact. You can't. That's why also leftists hate colonization. They don't hate imperialism. They don't hate colonization. They don't hate colonialism because they do that with the LGBTQ and the racial grievance politics throughout all these countries, in these foreign countries, right? They fund Pakistani gender studies. They want to use our taxpayer funds to fund gender transitions in the middle of Bangladesh. Like, that's what they actually do. Look it up. They fund LGBTQ activism in Japan and Korea. So they don't hate imperialism. But the reason why they keep saying that they hate colonization is why? Because through a lot of colonization, Christianity was spread. That's why they hate it. You have to understand that. When they say they hate white people, it's because they hate white people as an extension of Christianity. Why? Because they are demonically possessed or oppressed. And this is a spiritual war. You must understand this. Now, as you understand that, then you're able to understand, oh, when they say inclusion and tolerance, they only mean everything that stands in opposition to historic Christianity. Islam, feminism, transgenderism, the rainbow mafia cult, abortion on demand for whatever reason necessary. All of these pernicious, toxic ideologies, these godless ideologies that stand in opposition to historic Christianity, that's what they mean when they say inclusion. All are welcome except Christians. That's why they say in their address too, right? We know that, oh, it's so much the pain and anger it caused the LGBTQ community. What about the pain and anger that you cause to Christians when you force Christians to wear symbols that go completely contradictory to us? Can you imagine if players were forced to wear a cross? I think that's kind of based. But imagine the outrage. And they say that is unacceptable. So they just hate Christians. They just hate Christians. And on top of that, the fact that they got a warning for sharing a Bible verse on top of their cap, they didn't even say anything remotely hateful. All they wrote was a Bible verse on their cap. After they're being forced to wear apparel that promotes a lifestyle that is in direct contradiction and opposition to their religious beliefs. Oh, they're going to be punished for that. So the Christian is punished for holding on to the word of God, yet gays can march around naked, groom children, and that's celebrated because of diversity and inclusion and tolerance. Now, we all know Genesis 9:12-6. It says, "And God said, this is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all generations. I have set my bow in the sky," or bow in the sky, "and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. The rainbow belongs to God. It is a sign of God's mercy on people, on his people. This is something that you need to understand because God is such a merciful God. Even in the midst of all of your sin and wickedness, he chooses not to flood the earth again. The rainbow is a sign of the Noahic covenant. It is not a sign of degeneracy. They are repurposing Christianity to promote perversion and wickedness and sin. We shouldn't allow that. We shouldn't be okay with that. And this is just a sign that you see that the LGBTQ is just another religion. That how dare you blaspheme the oh so sacred intersectional pride flag? How dare you with your Bible verses? Every society has blasphemy laws that are enforced either culturally or politically. So it's not about whether or not you have blasphemy laws. It's about what those blasphemy laws are. And if we continue to allow people to blaspheme the name of Christ in the name of tolerance and religious tolerance, then what happens as a result is that these foreign subversive pseudo-religions and actual religions like Islam, they come over and they take over your country and your society, where now you're demanded to bow at the feet of Islam, like you saw in New York City with Mamdani. You're forced to bow at the feet of the LGBTQIA, BCD, Rainbow Mafia, like we see here in the Pride Night, and they'll be punished by the MLB if they don't bow down. This is why Christians need to be serious about taking back their country. Das Volt, in Latin. We need to take back our country for Christ. And some people might see this as performative. Other people might say that was unnecessary. But I do believe that this was fruitful. Why? Look at this Google Trends. So for Genesis 9:12-16, okay? No one's really searching it. And then boom! Right there. See? During June, because of their witness. And you see, the last time it spiked, it was last year's Pride Night. So, MLB players, athletes, just Christian patriots being unashamed about the gospel of Jesus Christ, about the truth of God's word. It is a powerful testimony to the rest of the world that you won't acquiesce to these insane leftists who demand that you relinquish your Christian convictions and you denounce your God. No, we won't. We have the God of the universe on our side. We believe the creator of the universe, Jesus Christ, the lover of my soul. I will not bow down. I will not accept your pronoun nonsense. I'm not going to celebrate butt sex and double mastectomies for children, hysterectomies. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to stand firm in the word of God because we love the Lord with all our hearts, minds, soul, and strength. Genuinely, screw you. If you're going to take anything up the butt, take this pride stuff up the butt and shove it. Okay? Take this Pride Night stuff in the MLB, take the Pride parades, take all of it in all of our corporations and institutions, wherever you go, even in our video games. Take all of that and shove it up your own butt, all right? Don't shove it in our faces. We are tired of it. We are tired. Because why? This is nothing to celebrate. Sin is not something to celebrate. But also, we want a society and a country, a nation that honors God. We are not ashamed of that. So stop pushing this degeneracy that harms our children, that destroys families. Stop pushing this on us. And we won't be silent anymore. And praise God for these brave, courageous MLB pitchers who their whole life, they worked up to be a pitcher, to be a professional baseball player. And they're putting that on the line. Why? Because Christ first, always. Always. And God will honor that. It might be hard. You might go through turmoil and trials. The enemy will ferociously attack you. But God is on our side. And if the Lord is for us, who can be against us? He cares for the sparrow. Will he not care for you? Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added onto you. And I'd rather be remembered for how I stood up for Christ rather than how I cowered in fear. That's what I want to be remembered for. And clearly that's what these MLB pitchers want to be remembered for as well. But you have to understand, if you want to live in a society where your children and you and your family can practice Christianity, basic Christianity freely, then we're going to have to fight. Not violently, of course. People might take that out of context, but be firm. Now, obviously, J.D. Vance responded to this. He says, Trump won, so we don't have to do this anymore. So true. And a lot of people in the comments are saying, well, do something about it. Do something about it. Well, they are doing something about it. We have Josh Hawley responded on X in a very, very lengthy letter. He says in his tweet, what does MLB think it's doing penalizing players for their Christian faith? They owe us some answers right now. Based. We love Josh Hawley. He's a great Christian patriot in the halls of Congress. He loves the Lord. He loves his family. He loves his country. We love to see people like that in the GOP. You're going to find only people like that in the GOP. I wish most of the GOP was like Josh Hawley. But in his letter, he warned that they have until, I believe, a few days from now to submit evidence and full cooperation with Josh Hawley in his investigation to prove whether or not this was religious discrimination. And these are the steps we have to take. That is so good. Like, Josh Hawley is actually doing something about it. That's good. Also, Bishop Barron, is part of the Faith Religious Liberty Commission that the Trump administration created, he also said that they might have to do some investigations as well. So this is good. This is objectively good. We need to attack. We need to go into the ring and duke it out with these very powerful institutions like the MLB to protect Christian liberty in America. That is of prime importance. And it's a good, righteous endeavor. We like to see it. So things are happening, things are rolling, and all thanks to what? Thanks to these MLB pitchers, these brave San Francisco Giants pitchers who took it upon themselves to put Genesis 9, reminding everyone in the entire world that the rainbow does not belong to a degenerate sex cult, but it belongs to the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings. It belongs to Christ himself. It is God's promise to us of his mercy, of his grace, of his love, and his covenant to his people. The sign of God's promise. It ain't yours. We're taking it back. But honestly, we don't even need to take it back because it was never yours to begin with. It was always God's. So never forget that. And we will win. We will win. And this leads to a minor league baseball team, the Texas. This is actually good too. I forgot to mention this. That the Texas Rangers will host a faith and family night instead of a pride night, making them the only MLB team to do so. Based. Whatever it comes down from the MLB bureaucrats, whatever they say top down, you must do this. Let's have these franchises just go all of them just raise up in defiance. There's so many baseball players who are deeply Christian. I went to a Mets game last year, and just like all of these players, just cross necklaces, kissing their cross, giving glory to God. Like, there's no reason why so many more franchises can't hold a faith and family night over a pride night. Like, that's something to celebrate. Our faith, our love for God, our families, that's something to celebrate. Degeneracy is not something to celebrate. Courage begets courage. This is why I encourage all of you listening to be courageous in your respective communities, whether it's online, whether it's in person, in your churches, in your workplaces. Be courageous. Courage begets courage. We see here a minor league baseball team, they canceled Pride Night after players refused to wear rainbows. Courage begets courage. It's like a tidal wave. We must continue to press on. Press on. Take back the culture. And then once we get into power, Then we're like, okay, we're going to take the appropriate steps to protect genuine liberty, to protect the rights of vulnerable people, especially the preborn and our children, young girls. That's what it's about. That's what we're doing. So huge props to the MLB pitchers. I think we need to highlight stories of courage like this much more. But also, we need to focus on how the institutions in America are so aggressively and belligerently anti-Christian. And no matter what the left says about, oh, you Christian snowflakes, oh, you have a oppression complex, these are the same people who have a meltdown if you don't use Zer pronouns. We're not taking your gaslighting seriously anymore. We don't care about your accusations of racism, of xenophobia, of transphobia, of homophobia. We don't care. We do this because we love our neighbors, we love our country, we love our God. And no matter how much you hurl slurs and insults at us, we're going to stand firm. We will stand firm on the foundation that is Christ. Okay, that does it for our 3 segments. We are now moving on to our Q&A, so make sure to like, share, and subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all those things, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcast platforms. We are now moving on to our Q&A, where we answer your questions live on air and also your super chat. So if you haven't gotten a chance to put in a super chat, make sure to do so. We will take your money and use it for good causes to expand the pursuit for truth and helping to wake people up out of their trance and their delusion to take back our countries. That being said, let's go to our first question. Our first question from Instagram, from Marcos A. Encinso. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Ideally, how many generations does one have to be in America to be considered American? That's a great question. Incredible question. Especially when the talks of assimilation, national identity, nationhood, immigration, that's like the forefront of American politics today, isn't it? And I think it's good. First off, I do want to make this point. People say that identity politics is bad, but the reality is identity politics is just politics, because the reason why our current political climate is so contentious is because we're dealing with issues of identity. Who are we as a nation? Who am I as a person? Who do I want to be? Who do we want to be? Those are the fundamental issues we're wrestling with. Even like the pride issue that we're just talking about. That's an identity issue where they find identity in their sin and their sexual degeneracy, not in Christ, not in their family. And their new family identity becomes the LGBTQ cult. Things like that, right? It's all issues of identity. So identity politics will exist whether you like it or not. It's just a matter of when identity politics is leveraged to excuse evil because you are of a certain identity, that's when it's bad. Right? For example, we saw huge swaths of the black community excuse Carmelo Anthony's murder. That's when it's bad. That you can't even say the murder is bad just because it was a black teenager who did it. That being said, America. How long does it take for an American to become an American? I would say 3 generations. And why I say 3 generations is because, one, the immigrants who come in, the first generation immigrants, they're still going to have ties to their home country and still speak their native tongue pretty fluently, and that's probably what's going to be their everyday language of choice. And you can't untether someone from that. It's not only unrealistic, but I think it's kind of unfair, to be honest. But then, second generation still identifies more because they grew up with first-generation immigrant parents. They identify still with their homeland, their home country. This is why most Korean immigrants still, like for me, I'm guilty of this, cheer on Korea at the World Cup. That happened yesterday, which, oh my gosh, they're lost in Mexico. Don't even get me starting. It was a terrible match. Anyways, there's that. But the third generation, I believe the third generation at least is what it takes for someone to be an assimilated American. And I believe that someone, if they want to run for office, hold political office, be in Congress, even vote, they should be a third generation Because, like, in order to have assimilation, people think that assimilation that can happen overnight. It doesn't. So the left doesn't want assimilation. They see assimilation as white supremacist. And then the right says, oh yeah, just as long as they assimilate. Well, are they assimilating right now? No one's assimilating, okay? Because not only from the sheer amount of people flooding in to America and flooding into Western countries to form their own little communities, which are growing, so they have no incentive to assimilate. But also, it's just like physically and practically impossible to have people assimilate and adopt your culture and customs, understand why it's important, have an inherent tie and love for that overnight. It's impossible. Assimilation takes time. It takes generations. So in my opinion, I believe 3 generations. 3 generations is good enough for someone to say, okay, they are abandoning their ties to their native homeland. They are becoming a citizen of this country, of their host country, and this place has become their home now. I believe that's probably, I would say, a fair take. I think it's a fair take. If I had it my way, I would say even like 4 or 5 generations. And why I say that is because then it disincentivizes immigrants from flooding into America. You make it easier for immigrants to participate in American society. You're just going to incentivize more of them to come in. That's just a reality. So maybe in 4 or 5 would be ideal. 4th or 5th generation, then you're a true American. But I think it just takes time. That's just reality. So I'm not being hateful when I say that. And I'm not being self-hating either. I acknowledge this for myself and my family because we're still deeply very Korean. Like the language you speak at home is Korean. That's why I can still speak Korean and read Korean and write in Korean. Is because that's what I spoke all the time growing up at home. So I acknowledge that for myself, and I think about, okay, then how does that impact the broader American fabric? Yeah, I want America to be distinctly American, and there's nothing wrong with wanting that. And so wanting immigrants to assimilate, that's good. That's actually good. Foreigners should assimilate, but then that takes generations. So 3rd generation, I think, is what it takes for you to become an American. Next question. Urban Tree on X. Would you ever consider running politically at some point in the future? In America, probably not. In America, probably not. And why I say that is because, for one, I don't like politics. And that might be weird because that's what I talk about. But I'm actually a chill guy. I have interests. I like gaming. I like playing sports. I like talking about culture, and that's inherently tied to politics. And I like thinking about politics. I like opining about politics, but politics itself is so dirty. Like when you get into the game and get into the ring and you're duking it out, it's such a dirty game, such a vicious game that I genuinely don't like it. That being said, just because I don't like it doesn't mean that I shouldn't do it. Right? There's so many things that God calls us to do that we don't want to do, but it is the call of God on our lives. I understand that. But I don't really like the idea of running for office and then having to be responsible to the people and make laws and legislations. And I don't know. I'm not like that. Maybe I'm kind of like George Washington in that way. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I'm like George Washington because he was a genuinely great man. But it's like I just don't like the idea of running for office and holding political power for myself. I like talking about it, and I enjoy supporting people who are steering the country in a better direction. But that's just not my temperament. But that being said, if I have to, I will. But also, like I mentioned, I don't believe that foreigners should hold public office. I was born in Korea. I'm an immigrant. I'm a naturalized immigrant. I don't think that foreigners should be making laws and the rules that govern your land. That's just so preposterous. Can you imagine if a bunch of white people went to Korea and started running for office and making laws about what should be the laws that affect Korean society? I wouldn't like that. So why are we okay with immigrants just flooding in? And then now we have freaking, what is his name? Shri Vandar or whatever. And I think it was Michigan, that Indian congressman. You have Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, these foreigners coming in and then making laws in your country that affect your everyday citizen. That's preposterous. That is seriously such a ridiculous proposition. At the very least, be born in America if you're going to run for office. So I wouldn't. Now, would I consider moving back to Korea and running for office there? Maybe. Don't want to make any promises right now, but I think I would consider that. Considering that I still, as much as I love America, as a Korean American, I still deeply love Korea and have my heart tied to Korea. So we shall see about that, but not sure. Ultimately, if I have to, I will, but I don't necessarily want to run for political office. That does it for the questions on Instagram and on X. Did we have any super chats? All right, no super chats. Looks like a lot of you guys are chilling and hanging out on this Friday afternoon, and no worries there, but make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Do all the things that patriots and good people do. Support the channel. Become a member at our channel. We're going to have member-exclusive content very soon. And yeah, make sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We'll be back here Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern talking about everything important going on in this country, in Korea, and around the world, and online. And then until next time, I'm your host, Kangmin Lee of The Kangmin Lee Show, where we're all about restoring faith, identity, and civilization from east to west. May you have a great and blessed weekend. Make sure to go to church on Sunday, praise the Lord, give thanks for everything that you have and all the blessings that God has bestowed upon you. I will see you on Tuesday. God bless. Godspeed. See you guys.